Today, we're going to talk about workplace relationships, how they form, why they matter, and how they influence our daily work experience. Even if you haven't worked full-time yet, you may have part-time jobs, internships, campus organizations, or group projects. All of those count as workplace relationships. So, what are workplace relationships? Workplace relationships are the connections between people who work together. Some coworkers might simply say good morning and mind their own business, while others may develop close friendships and even become part of each other's personal life. For example, think about a restaurant. Two cooks who never talk beyond kitchen instructions. They're still a workplace relationship. A cashier who comforted another cashier after a customer yelled at them. A relationship with emotional support. A server who later attends their manager's wedding. A professional relationship becoming personal. So even simple interactions shape how we feel at work, and there are three key characteristics. The first is status. Most workplaces have hierarchy. CEO, manager, supervisor, employee, and intern. For example, a student working in a university office speaks politely to full-time staff and calls them by titles like Mr. or Mrs., but is casual with other student employees. Another example, in a hospital, a nurse cannot just tell a doctor what to do, even if they disagree. Status controls communication style. Second, intimacy. Some relationships stay strictly professional. Can you send the report? The meeting starts at 10. While others become personal, sharing lunch, talking about family, checking on someone's mental health. There's an example. Two instructors teach in the same building. At first, they only discuss class scheduling. Over time, they start discussing grading frustrations, then family stories, and later become close friends who travel together. That kind of relationship started professional but became personal. Third, choice. We don't choose coworkers, but we choose who we trust. In an office with 30 employees, you probably don't open up to all of them, all 3 of them, all 30 of them. You may only confide in 1 or 2 people. Maybe you share things with a coworker who is a good listener, but avoid another coworker who gossips. So choice matters. What are the advantages of workplace relationships? The first is knowledge sharing. A new employee learns how to use complicated software program because a more experienced coworker teaches her shortcuts. She becomes faster and more confident. Second, emotional support. A colleague brings coffee to someone who is stressed about a deadline or stays late to help finish a project. Third, career opportunities. If a manager trusts an employee, they might recommend them for promotion or a special project. Small real-life example like this. Imagine you're an intern. You work really hard. Your coworkers like you, and your supervisor respects you. Months later, when a full-time job opens, who do you think they will think of first? Relationships create opportunities. And there are, of course, some disadvantages of workplace relationships. The first is gossip. 2 coworkers talk privately about someone's mistake. Soon the whole office knows. The targeted employee feels humiliated and stops trusting others. Second, cliques. A group always eats lunch together and ignores everyone else. New employees feel isolated and excluded. Third, emotional burden. If your close workplace friend cries about their personal problems every day, you may feel stressed and distracted from your own work. Imagine this. A teacher becomes very close to another teacher. When that friend starts having marriage problems, she cries in the office daily, and the colleague who wants to help but has classes to prepare and deadlines to meet. So this friendship ends up becoming heavy instead of supportive. And let's talk about organizational culture. It explains why working at different places feels different, even with the same job title. Let's learn about the story of Steve. So, Steve worked at 2 places. The first is an ice cream shop. Rules were strict. One mistake could mean termination. Employees were nervous and did not socialize at all. The second place where Steve works at is a pizza shop. Workers joked during shifts, sometimes ate pizza with manager, and the supervisors used first names. They're actually same type of job, but totally different organizational culture. There are also many other examples of cultural differences, like a tech startup, casual clothes, flexible hours, open communication with the CEO, a bank or law firm, formal dress, strict schedule, clear hierarchy. A school, shared teaching spaces, emotional support, but also stress and burnout. What are the workplace values, you would ask? So here are some examples. In some companies, leaving on time is normal. In others, staying late shows dedication. So that is a different value system. And norm. What is norm? Some companies expect workers to speak up during meetings. Others expect workers to stay quiet unless asked. And that is different norm of behaviors. And finally, artifacts. A large open office with bright colors encourages communication. A traditional office with closed doors encourages privacy and hierarchy. Posters that say customers first signals values. A strict dress code versus jeans and sneakers, which reflect the culture of the workplace. So all these elements are artifacts. Another very important thing that we need to learn in workplace is about networking. Organizations are full of formal and informal communication networks. Formal example could be emails from your HR, staff meetings, official announcements. Informal examples could be coworkers chatting in the hallway, WhatsApp group message, gossiping in the break room. So, how information flow? If a manager tells only one employee about a new rule, and that employee forgets to tell others, confusion and mistakes happen. But if the manager sends a clear email to everyone, then the workplace runs smoothly. And this is how information should flow. What is network density? There are some places that has a relatively high network density. Everyone talks to everyone, news spreads fast, decisions are made quickly, and there are also workplaces with a relatively lower density. Departments avoid each other, misunderstanding grow. So ideally, you want to live or work at a place that have proper network density, not too stressful, not too low, to cut down the efficiency. For example, in a hospital, doctors, nurses, and lab workers communicate constantly, and that is high-density networking. But in a university, sometimes, for example, the math department, they might barely talk to the music department, which is actually low density. Let's move to the technology in the workplace. Technology improves communication indeed. We're all familiar with the Zoom meetings, shared Google Docs, and some online schedules. A team with members in China, Canada, and the US collaborates through Zoom, shared cloud files. Without technology, this is impossible. But technology also creates problems, right? Receiving emails at midnight, too many group chats, security threats. Workers expected to respond instantly. An employee turns off their phone at night but their boss sends messages in WeChat or WhatsApp asking for immediate answers. This harms work-life balance. And there's also a thing called organizational climate. Climate refers to the emotional atmosphere. There are some places have positive atmosphere when everyone gets sick, coworkers cover their work. People feel safe, respected, seen, and encouraged. And there are also sometimes negative climate. When someone makes a mistake, the manager publicly blames them, make them lose face. Employees become afraid, silent, and unhappy. So, organizational climate affects motivation and job satisfaction more than salary sometimes. We talked about cliques. So workplace cliques are small groups that stick together. There are actually two sides of the story. The positive side is that For example, 3 coworkers run together every morning and push each other to be healthy and punctual. The negative side could be a group spreads rumors about a new employee, making them feel unwelcome and isolated. That employee ended up quit the job. It happens in the workplace all the time. So that is very important for us to navigate our peer relationships with our coworkers. And there are different types of peers that you should be able to categorize in your workplace. There's one type called information peers. For example, 2 cashiers only talk about schedules, break time, and price changes. That is information peers. And collegial peers. Teachers sharing teaching materials but also talk about family and weekend plans. Finally, special peers. 2 nurses work night shifts together for years. They share personal struggles, secrets, and emotional support. They trust each other more than anyone else at the hospital. So apparently, the special peers is the closest and the most intimate type of peer relationships they can have at a workplace. But sometimes there are also mixed status relationships, meaning relationships between co-workers of different hierarchical status. For example, supervisor and employee can also be friends. A manager explains tasks calmly, gives feedback politely, and respects employees' ideas. Workers feel motivated. And also mentor and mentee type of relationship. A senior employee teaches a new intern not only technical skills, but also how to handle difficult customers or manage stress. There are also bad mixed status examples, like a manager who embarrasses coworkers in meetings, a professor who ignores student emails. This creates fear and resentment, and we need to avoid it as the best as we can. There are also different types of communication channels. One is called upward communication, and the other is called downward communication. This refers to your status in the hierarchy at the workplace. The upward communication refers to mostly employee talking to the boss. The good example is that if you're in the employee, you would say, I found a cheaper supplier that will save the company money. Or there's a safety issue, I think we should fix it before someone gets hurt. That is a good type of upward communication. And there are also bad examples of this kind of upward communication. For example, when you face your boss, you stay silent, complain only to your coworkers, and never telling the management about what is really going on in your environment. And downward communication, that is usually boss to employee. Sometimes this can be good. The good example is when the boss says, please finish this report by Friday. If you need help, let me know. Give clear instructions, and this is efficient, constructive communication. And the bad example could be when the boss or the employer said, don't do this, do that, don't ask questions, stuff like that. This is not respectful. So respectful downward communication builds trust and loyalty. And disrespect downward communication builds resentment and inefficiency, actually. To sum up, workplace relationships shape our daily experience. They can help us grow, they can cause stress, they influence whether we stay or leave a job. If we understand the cultural networks, communication status, and peer dynamics, we can build healthier, happier, and workplaces and become better coworkers, leaders, and professionals.